Vermont will fight for immigrant rights.
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 We demand that Vermont's congressional delegation, as well as our local and statewide elected representatives, advocate that the federal, state, and local government, 1, close the concentration camps. 2, defund and abolish ICE. 3, support the amazing campaigns that Migrant Justice, Justicia Migrante are running with the Milk with Dignity program and its No Más Polimigra campaign. And 4, support just jobs. By converting jobs at these ICE facilities into socially useful ones in education, healthcare, and government services.
We're gonna keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Never turning back. Never turning back.
The fear that this organization instills in people is terrorism. And this type of terrorism is a part of our history. And when I think of what we are going through now, I think of my people. I think of the indigenous people of this land. I wish I could say that this crisis is new or that we as a country have never been complicit in the separation of children from their families. Sadly, the history is repeating itself again. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act called for ethnic cleansing of the indigenous peoples of this country. Thousands of women and children were murdered and mutilated to stop the Indian problem. My family is Lakota Sioux, and we were warriors. When the Sioux nations of Minnesota attempted to rise up against the white oppression, they were forced to march to concentration camps that were built on sacred ceremonial land. This is where more than 1,700 Lakota and Dakota women and children were forced to attempt to survive with no food, no water, and no wood for fire. Many died on what we call the Long Walk. As we remember our true history, I ask you not to be sad, but to be different. Be the voice that carries the truth of all of our history. My people are not the only indigenous people. I remind you that borders are imaginary lines that colonizers put in this place to make indigenous peoples of this continent feel displaced. The people who are crossing these imaginary borders are indigenous people. Yes. They were here first. Today, I ask you to support my indigenous sisters and brothers, and we protect their family history. Do not allow another generation of children to be harmed. We must do all that we can to protect the next 7 generations so that they can live in a world where their differences are celebrated. We can create a new history of this land, and we will.
Never turning back.
We're here today, standing on stolen land in a country built by stolen people, to say that no one is illegal. It's long past time to be loud, be assertive, to be fucking proud, to tell people you support immigrant rights. What I have to say next is addressed to those who are afraid, specifically to those who fear the differences that make us who we are. I want you to ask yourselves, who do these fears benefit? What do you gain from not associating with me because I am transgender? What do you gain from being afraid of our immigrant neighbors and family? Certainly not job or financial security, because the people you fear lack the power to take those things from you. You may fear us because of the lies and rumors that say we're dangerous. Look at what is happening in this country. Look at who is separated from their families, who is shot by our police, who is beaten for using a public bathroom. Now look at who is doing the separating, the shooting, and the beating. Are you still more afraid of the victims of this violence than the perpetrators? To those who are not here today because it isn't safe for them, I see you and I know you are with us in solidarity. I'll continue to use my privilege to fight for a future where we can all exist side by side without fear of being attacked for who we are or where we are from. Until that time comes, I ask those of you with the privilege to choose that you join me in choosing justice over comfort, courage over fear, empathy over apathy, and love over indifference. And in closing, I want to acknowledge the transgender, undocumented folks who deal with xenophobia and transphobia, who often can't seek the medically necessary help they need to transition. In the fight for transgender liberation, we must not leave our migrant siblings behind the way that trans people as a whole were left behind by the earlier gay rights movement of this country, which was started by bricks thrown by trans women of color. Thank you.
We represent 10,000 unionized workers throughout the state, and we're here in solidarity because we recognize that the racist scapegoating of immigrants not only devastates people who have been detained, who have been separated from their families, who have been ripped out of their communities, who have been deported, but we're also standing in solidarity because we recognize that this is classic divide and conquer. It weakens everyone's ability to fight for better wages, working conditions, services, and communities that are worth living in if we buy into this idea that somehow immigrants are to blame for the state of affairs in this country. An injury to one is an injury to all. So when you come, we want this government to understand that when they come for immigrants, they are coming for our brothers and sisters, they are coming for us, and they have to reckon with all of us. That kind of solidarity where we have one another's back, not just in word but in deed, is what we are seeking to rebuild in the labor movement, because really, frankly, we have a lot of work that we have to do. The labor movement in this country has been on the decline for many years, in part because it has accepted the scapegoating and racism against immigrants that's been whipped up by politicians periodically. But I have so much hope because there's a reform movement going on in this country, and the labor movement as well, that seeks to explicitly turn this around. We recognize that stable, good-paying jobs are not easy to come by here in Vermont. But the jobs that the organizers of this protest want to see created are what they call socially useful jobs. And this is so important, I think, because it allows us to reimagine a fundamentally different society. Our government has spent $324 billion on immigration policy enforcement since ICE was created in 2003. $324 billion on drones, on weapons, on armored vehicles, on technology, on detention camps, and on Border Patrol agents, because we can't afford to let immigrants in. Think of how preposterous that is. There isn't enough money, but they'll spend $324 billion on ICE and other agencies. Imagine what our communities could look like if the government were to spend $324 billion on health care, on education, on housing, on environmental protection, on the creation of programs that help integrate immigrants into their new homes and surroundings. $324 billion to create rather than to terrorize and to destroy. Because we do not face an immigration crisis in this country. This is not a crisis. We are not being overrun by immigrants. It's a racist, distorted lie. It's monstrous. What we face is a crisis of greed, of massive wealth inequality, of depraved indifference to human suffering in the name of preserving the rule of corporations and a war machine.
The Hopkins Coalition Against ICE is elated to note that students and community members in Vermont are standing up today against Vermont's relationship with the modern-day Gestapo. We've learned that the administration at Vermont Tech has tried to distance themselves from their ICE contracts by saying that they do not endorse the policy of family separations. This excuse is familiar to us. The administration at Johns Hopkins University told us the same thing. But the Vermont administration cannot pretend that it is innocent. It cannot pretend that it does not know of the xenophobic violence and trauma that is endemic to ICE. They cannot pretend that leadership and accounting courses are benign, especially if they are for the purpose of training people to serve in an institution that is fundamentally racist.
That's right, yeah.
And finally, they cannot pretend that they are powerless in this situation. To the administration of Vermont Tech, we urge you to follow the example of Johns Hopkins University. Recognize that you have no moral ground to stand on, and that these people out here today have only begun to show you just how much shit can be stirred. It's It's time for Vermont to put an immediate end to any and all partnerships with ICE. To the protesters, we say this: do not give up.
That's right.
Do not accept any excuses.
That's right.
Your persistence and commitment can overcome the most obstinate resistance.
Yes.
You have the moral high ground. You are on the right side of the barricades. We at Hopkins prove you can win. And we know you can prove it too. What the heck, Vermont Tech?
I'm here to read and translate a statement from a volunteer who was too afraid to be here today to read this. But I'm here to share her message and her experience of being in Vermont. Encontrarse en otro país con otras costumbres y otro idioma es difícil, pero no imposible. To find yourself in another country with other customs and traditions and another language is difficult, but it is not impossible. Soy orgullosamente mexicana y vivo en Vermont desde hace 16 años. Empecé a ir a clases de inglés a los 6 meses de haber llegado a Middlebury, Vermont. Cuando necesité cuidado médico me recomendaron ODC y así fue como la clínica y yo empezamos una relación inquebrantable. Años después conocí a la enfermera Julia Doucet, quien me reclutó a ser parte del grupo de intérpretes de ODC, diciéndome que los pacientes mexicanos se sentirían muy confiados al ser traducidos por otro mexicano como ellos. El ser parte de ODC me ha dado mucha satisfacción poder ayudar a mis paisanos, poder darles información valiosa, conocerlos y que ellos me agradezcan el servicio recibido es un orgullo para mí. El personal de ODC está capacitado para lidiar con hispanohablantes y darles la mejor atención médica que tengamos a nuestro alcance. Todos los médicos y enfermeras se toman el tiempo necesario para entender al paciente y así por darle la atención necesaria. Ser voluntario es ayudar a hacer un trabajo, es ayudar y hacer un trabajo sin recibir ningún pago a cambio. Pero yo recibo algo muy especial. Es una satisfacción muy grande al escuchar "Muchas gracias, señora". ¿Me podría traducir en mi siguiente cita? Thank you.
People are united against these racist, bigoted policies that are ripping families apart. You heard that I am an immigrant from Libya. There are no more people like me allowed into this country. Whether it's Border Patrol with their disgusting tactics, both in their checkpoints and following people in stores and businesses, or ICE or police departments who refuse policies that will hold their officers accountable if they collaborate with ICE. These policies, along with the horrendous practices of sending police to get trained in apartheid Israel, as if policing isn't racist enough in this country, or the Muslim ban, or the criminal unjust system, or the FBI, who I know is listening, with their surveillance of the Muslim community and also all y'all too, not just the Muslim community.
That's right.
Or our military with close to 800 bases across the world in 70 different countries or territories. We want to send a strong message that we aren't scared anymore.
That's right.
We have the legacies of those who came before us, those who have stood up to power and said, we bring our own power.
That's right.
It's imperative that we dismantle CBP.
That's right.
It's imperative that we dismantle ICE and the police and the FBI. And our military. And instead we invest in our people.
That's right.
Invest in building schools, in healthcare, and the well-being of our people.
Mi nombre es Enrique Balcázar, también me pueden llamar Quique. Estoy hablando en nombre de mi comunidad, de los trabajadores lecheros que vivimos en Vermont y de toda la comunidad indocumentada que vivimos bajo ataque constante por las leyes y las agencias de inmigración en todo el país.
My name is Enrique Quique Balcazar. I'm speaking today on behalf of the community of dairy workers and all undocumented immigrants.
Llegué a este país siendo un joven de 17 años y soñaba con terminar mis estudios, pero nunca imaginé que todo eso quedaría en segundo plano en mi vida, porque casi desde el primer día que llegué me involucré para luchar por los derechos humanos junto con mi comunidad. Me di cuenta de la cacería humana hecha por mismos humanos. Arrestan, encarcelan y deportan a las personas y separan familias o le terminan los sueños a alguien que lucha tanto para llegar aquí en busca de una vida mejor. También me di cuenta de la explotación laboral a la que las agencias de inmigración contribuyen día con día por el acoso constante que hacen a las mismas comunidades. Yo soy parte de la organización Justicia Migrante, una organización de base de trabajadores lecheros aquí en el estado de Vermont. Y organizándonos desde el 2010 hemos logrado ganar cambios a políticas que mejoran la vida de los trabajadores migrantes que vivimos aquí. Juntos hemos luchado contra la discriminación de las agencias de policía y la colaboración entre la policía y ICE. Hemos ganado una política más fuerte en la ciudad de Winooski y seguimos luchando para expandir este modelo a todo el estado. Nuestro activismo y organizándonos nos llevó a ganar la ley de licencias para todos los que vivimos en el estado, sin importar el estatus migratorio. También la campaña exitosa de Leche con Dignidad, que es un programa creado y liderado por los mismos trabajadores para ganar acuerdos legales con las corporaciones que compran la leche y de esta manera asegurar los derechos laborales y humanos en los ranchos lecheros. Pero al mismo tiempo que luchamos por los derechos humanos y laborales, somos presa o blancos por las agencias de inmigración. Entre el 2016 y 2018, en Vermont hubo más de 40 arrestos de miembros de nuestra organización, y de los cuales muchos terminaron en la deportación, y 9 de estos arrestos tienen prueba de represalia. Esto no solo pasa en la frontera sur, también está pasando aquí, en Vermont, en un estado tan progresista. Demandamos a ICE para detener la vigilancia y la represalia contra la organización, pero los ataques contra la comunidad siguen con detenciones regulares que aterrorizan a la comunidad. Yo estoy en proceso de deportación después de ser vigilado y arrestado en marzo del 2017. Pero estoy aquí para alzar la voz como persona indocumentada y decir que estas agencias sean controladas o de plano sean cerradas por el tanto abuso de poder y que nos dejen vivir en paz y que las familias sean reunificadas ya. Bueno, les tenemos a todos una invitación para una acción nacional. Ahora estamos en campaña pública contra el supermercado Hannaford para expandir el programa de leche con dignidad. Casi con 200 tiendas, Hannaford compra mucha leche de los ranchos de Vermont y si entra al programa traerá protección para los derechos y la dignidad de los trabajadores en los ranchos. Este 2 de noviembre estamos llamando a un día de acción nacional en todas las tiendas de Hannaford. A las 4:30 tendremos la acción principal enfrente del Hannaford en Essex y les invitamos a venir. El poder de los trabajadores lecheros con el de los consumidores hará que el supermercado Hannaford nos escuche y tome un paso importante para asegurar los derechos de los trabajadores firmando el acuerdo de leche con dignidad. Not one more, not one more, not one more. Not one more, not one more. Sí se puede, sí se puede, sí se puede,
My name is Fareed. I'm with the People's Kitchen of the Vermont Worker Center. Like most of you, I'm also an immigrant. So thank you all for coming out here. We have some free food, some warm food, served by Burlington Food Not Bombs right behind us over there. So please get yourself something to eat. We bring you this free food with the support of local farms. Digger's Mirth Collective Farm in Burlington, in Intervale, and Cat's Meow Farm in Westford have donated generously to our causes. So please help yourself to some free food and support our movement and support feeding them good food from local farms. Thank you.
When refugee rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When Muslim rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. All right, y'all are pros.
Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We reach these shores from many lands. We came with hungry hearts and hands. Some came by force and some by will, at the auction block and the darkened mill. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We died in your fields and your factories, strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree, with an old coat hanger in a room somewhere, a trail of tears and an electric chair. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire.